Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about something that has interested me for a little bit and I've been meaning to make this video on it. Here on my desk I've got all of Deadpool's comics from the last couple years. And just in those couple years, Deadpool series has been canceled twice. I want to talk about some of the reasons why that could be. So I'm sure you've heard of Deadpool. If you haven't read any of his comics, you've probably seen the movies. Basically, in comics, Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson, was chosen to be part of a top-secret government program, and he was experimented on, and then came out of it with a healing factor. He uses his powers to become a mercenary for hire. Deadpool's ability to heal from basically any wound allows him to be extremely reckless, and that paired with his constant sense of humor, no matter what the situation is, he's always joking about something. And his ability to break the fourth wall, which is really weird. For the most part, Marvel's continuity all makes sense, but this is something that just goes completely under the radar, that as far as I know has never been explained. Deadpool is constantly referring to real-world things going on, and they don't talk about how he's able to do that. That's a whole nother thing I could get into. Maybe I'll make a separate video just about Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, but let's get on with the video. So Deadpool first appeared in New Mutants number 98, and that was in 1991. He got a couple of miniseries in the next couple years, and as his character grew, he got his first ongoing series in 1997, and that was written by Joe Kelly with art by Ed McGuinness. This series, of course, fleshed out the character more, and got more people interested as there was a chance to hop on Deadpool's ongoing series. But what a lot of different people consider to be the very best Deadpool run was the Gerry Duggan and Brian Posehn run. So they co-wrote their run together, and it ran from 2012 all the way to 2018, with the second half only being written by Gerry Duggan. This creative team, along with a bunch of talented artists, nailed the character, and they really brought emotion into Deadpool comics. I really haven't read very many issues of their run, but from what I've read, I've really enjoyed. But I really only started getting Deadpool comics every single month when they came out, after their run ended. Skottie Young picked up the mantle along with artists Nick Klein and Scott Hepburn in 2018, and that's where I started picking up Deadpool comics. Here we've got this first issue. I really enjoyed this run by Skottie Young. Nick Klein's art is especially great. He did the pencils and colors all himself. Now he's on to doing Thor, which is also good, but I think this is really where Nick Klein got his recognition. Skottie Young is known for doing like baby versions of superheroes, variant covers for Marvel. He does a bunch of those and adds text that's really funny, so he's always busy doing that. And he's usually got a series going on at Image also. He did the famous I Hate Fairyland comic. But writing a comic at Marvel, additionally, with all of the other stuff he's busy doing, is a lot to put on Skottie's plate. So although he really nailed his Deadpool, it only lasted for 15 issues and ended in 2019. His series mostly consisted of one-shot issues where Deadpool is hired to go to different places, like a theme park where he's supposed to hunt down Ziggy Pig, or probably my favorite issue of this whole series, issue 7, the Christmas-themed issue where Deadpool is hired by kids who didn't get presents in their stockings to go hunt down and kill Santa Claus. So Skottie Young had his little story. He managed to wrap everything up pretty well in his final issue, issue 15. And then just a couple months later, in November of 2019, Kelly Thompson and Chris Bachalo started their run of Deadpool as a new replacement. So before I get into their run, I want to say that I feel like Deadpool is a character that maybe takes a lot more time and effort to write than other comics. I feel like almost every panel, you need to have Deadpool saying something funny. Deadpool needs to always be joking. He needs to always be saying something to keep the story going. And that's something really tough to do that I think takes a lot more thought and effort than any other comic. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure that great comics like Venom or like Immortal Hulk, those probably take a lot of effort from the writers because they're so good. They have to work really hard to get those comics so good. I think that a writer really needs to not have too much else going on to be able to write a Deadpool comic. And that's why it was a good thing that Skottie Young's run ended so quickly. He didn't just sloppily write the Deadpool comic, right? He focused and was able to produce a great quality Deadpool comic, but it was just too much for him, and then he wasn't able to get all of his other things done, right? So that's why he had to end his run. And if it had gone on, it probably would have become not a great Deadpool comic because he just wouldn't have had the time to add those little details that make Deadpool the character that he is. So I think that was the problem with Kelly Thompson's run. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. It was a good comic, but it wasn't like higher than average, and it wasn't exactly what we've been seeing from Deadpool from Scotty Young and Jerry Duggan and Brian Posen's runs, because there just wasn't that same amount of detail and effort into having jokes just every page and every panel. It was still funny sometimes, just not quite as often, and it wasn't the same kind of funny where there's just like some reference or just breaking the fourth wall or in any way. There wasn't stuff like that on every single page. It wasn't quite what I would expect out of a Deadpool comic. If you don't know, Kelly Thompson is very busy. She does a lot of work for Marvel, and right now she's the ongoing writer on Captain Marvel and Black Widow. And every once in a while she has a mini-series popping up, so that's very busy for a writer, and she has to put a lot of effort into all of her comics to make them good. And I think it's just not a good idea to give Deadpool to a writer who's doing great work on other comics, but they just need to only be working on Deadpool, or maybe just only having one other series, but just a small amount of work so that they can really put the effort into Deadpool that it required. I would go so far as to say that maybe when a writer comes on Deadpool, they should be paid more than they would be paid for other series, just because it might take more time to really nail the character. In Kelly Thompson's run of Deadpool, Deadpool is hired to kill the king of the monsters on Staten Island, and he actually succeeds, which no one was expecting him to. Because of the way their kingdom works, Deadpool becomes the new king of the monsters, and that's basically the main idea of the story. Obnoxious Deadpool, you can imagine, he's not a good king. We have his buddy Jeff the Land Shark in this comic, which was definitely the best part of Kelly Thompson's run of Deadpool. Jeff originally came from her West Coast Avengers run and has been hopping around a bunch of her different comics. I like it when creators do that. They have their trademark character that they just find some way to incorporate into any different comic they're writing, even if it doesn't make any sense. This series just wrapped up at issue 10, so that was even less issues than Scotty Young's Deadpool. And I think that in this case, it wasn't a creator choice. I think it got canceled because it might not have been selling enough. Who knows, maybe it would still be going if COVID hadn't happened. I know that Marvel is trying to only put out their series that sell well enough, so maybe Deadpool just didn't quite make it, and maybe people are also just not getting as many comics as before. But issue 10 just came out a couple weeks ago. It was a King in Black tie-in, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. It felt more like a Deadpool issue than the rest of the series. That was probably my favorite issue of the series. But now, there have been no announcements for who the next Deadpool writer will be. I know that sometimes Marvel likes to put out comics in correlation with new Marvel Cinematic Universe movies coming out. So if that's the case, then the next Deadpool movie doesn't have a release date. Now that Disney owns the rights to Deadpool, it's a big mess because Marvel Studios doesn't want to put out a Deadpool movie that's rated R. It's just a whole different deal than when Deadpool was owned by Fox. The next Deadpool announcement that we have so far, though, is Deadpool Nerdy 30, that's, I think, coming out in March, and it's a celebration of Deadpool's 30th anniversary. It's just a one-shot with a bunch of different short stories by previous Deadpool creators. I'm sure Deadpool will still be making guest appearances in different ongoing Marvel series. That happens a lot, and it's always funny to see different writers' takes on Deadpool and him just messing up everything going on in other characters' stories. So let me know who you think is going to be the next Deadpool creative team down in the comment section below. You can also hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell, and you'll be notified every single time I post a new video if you don't want to miss any. So that's everything from me. I'll sign off for now. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Bye, guys.